Yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of places do say we will still.
Hello there. I better take these glasses off. Apparently face recognition in cameras doesn't handle glasses very well. If you wear a hat and glasses, then it can be struggling to recognise your face. I mean, with technology these days, you think we'd be able to sort face recognition that, I mean, it can recognise a smile. If I can make changes in the camera there that will recognise different types of smiles, but it can't quite recognise glasses. There's a part of me thinking I may have made a bit of a mistake in buying that camera, because I don't really remember having so many focusing issues with the other camera. The number of bits of footage that I get back home where I'm not in focus. I mean, I have got one of the settings on this camera where I can set it up so that I just have to touch the pull-out screen. Whatever is on the pull-out screen, it will focus on that. But if I'm filming myself, I can't do that, because as soon as I touch the screen, it will focus on my finger. And I suppose the only other solution, if I'm wearing a hat and glasses, which it's not an unusual thing to do, would be to perhaps be standing beside something that I can focus on, a tree or a bush or something, or a post. And if I focus on that, and then if I'm standing beside it, I should be alright. But what a palaver. Technology. I'm just getting everything ready for Christmas. I was going to stand here and have a whole array of things, and they were actually mostly alcohol. I was going to get a mini keg of beer, about 5 litres of beer, and I was going to get a bottle of mead, and also a strange big bottle of kind of strong beer I quite like the look of. But I've been drinking too many beers lately, you know, which is easy to do at this time of year, but it's not good, you know. I mean, at this time of year, because it gets dark, you're sitting in the house, you probably get the lights on most of the time during the day. There's not enough light, and traditionally it's a time for drinking strong beer to tide you over this period. It's just, it's not always good. And I think it's worse if you're on your own. You get more of a tendency to be drinking at home. You know, I don't think it's exclusively people on their own. I'm sure couples can go down the same sort of road. It's all about getting a grip, you know. Too much of anything's not good for you. So I don't have as much laid out here as I was going to have laid out. You know, I've got the cracker. I've got the steak pie, which is in the fridge. In fact, I'll show you the steak pie. That is a steak pie. And I've got the persimmon. Yeah, I'm ready, basically. If you've not tried a persimmon, if you can get it ripe, it's absolutely delicious. Like an awful lot of fruit sold in supermarkets, it's generally sold a bit like a turnip. And you wonder if it's ever going to soften up and be ready to eat. If you get a wee bit of give in it, then that's generally a good time, be ready to eat then. And it's a wee bit like a chardon fruit, but a bit bigger. It's just got a lovely kind of caramelly taste about it. I mean, there's some fruit that isn't like any other type of fruit, and it can be quite difficult trying to describe it. I mean, as I say, this is like a chardon fruit. You think, well, what's a chardon fruit like? And it's not like anything else. A chardon fruit is kind of unique in the fruit world. It's like a grape, you know. You think, what's a grape like? Well, it's a grape. You know, strawberry, what's that like? It's like a strawberry. Not like anything else. Shan fruit's the same, and persimmon, as I say, a wee bit like a shan fruit, but wow, that's a lovely thing when it's ready. And I've also got the Marmite. I thought we'll have a wee hot cup of Marmite. Heat me up. And Marmite's one of these things in supermarkets that's kind of, you're never sure where it is. I think they keep the Bovril and the Marmite in two different places. Why? I'm just not entirely sure. Anyway, we'll get some of this Marmite in the go, and we'll sit down and snuggle up in front of the television with a fire on it. I'm not going to set fire to the telly, it's a fire on the telly, or in the telly. It's in there somewhere in the electronics. So see you shortly. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Some of that. Well, that's the fire on the telly thing on. Lovely. From past experience, I know that you only get so long before it stops. And then I think you've got to pay for it or something. So we've got a wee bit of free fire at the moment. Nice log fire on the mantelpiece. Beautiful. And I've got a lovely cup of Marmite. I think Christmas is always a time for reflection, and I think most of us probably hark back and look back to when we were children. And I think when you're a child, Christmas is very special. As you're an adult, it's not quite so special. And a lot of people will spend Christmas Day on their own. I will. I have done probably most of my life as an adult. And for people, it's just sometimes the way it is. Oh, the fire's stopped. Pay for fireplace, $5 for a year. What's a USD? A United States dollar? We'll just switch off, I think. Well. Yeah, so it's a time for reflection. Remembering all the good presents that you got as a child, and maybe some of the presents that weren't quite so good. I remember, well, I wasn't a child, I had grown up, although maybe I've never actually grown up, but it was when I was living through in Edinburgh in a band, and the guitar I had was a Gibson SG Junior, and if you know your guitars, you know that it's a good guitar. It's quite an old guitar, cherry red with a big black pickup, nice guitar to have. But I didn't really have a proper case for it. I had a big sort of rectangular case that was made out of cardboard, which sort of sounds worse than it actually was, because it was fairly solid. There was a wee bit of give, and it was the bit of give that kind of made me think, I need a proper case, one that's solid, so that if you accidentally drop it or stand on it, it's not going to go right through and damage the guitar. And I must have said something along those lines to my parents, i.e. I need to get myself a proper guitar case. And come Christmas Day, when we're all sitting around the table after the prawn cocktail and the chicken with the crispy skin and such like, and we got to the opening the presents bit, and we would hand around presents, and each one of us opened one present at a time while everybody else watched. And I have to open this present, rustle all the paper, and it was a soft guitar case, one of these kind of plasticky things that you'd maybe use, or vinyl kind of, that you'd use for maybe an acoustic guitar or something. It wasn't, it was just a cheap, insubstantial guitar case that was in no way up to the job of protecting my Gibson SC Junior. And I couldn't bring myself to say, that's lovely, well, thanks very much. What actually came out was, what is this? And sort of things sort of went downhill after that. It wasn't a great Christmas Day. I'd ruined the whole day. But everybody's got their own particular memories of Christmas Day. Oh, this is hot. And you maybe think about family members and those that are perhaps no longer here. And I was thinking about my dad, you know, as I'm sure a lot of people do. And I've still got some of his stuff. He's long gone, but I've still got some of his stuff. I've got his walking stick and some of his tools. I mean, it sounds really strange, but I've got his pencil. And they made good pencils in the old days. I don't think you'll be able to get a pencil like that these days. That is a good pencil. A tradesman's pencil, so that you can properly mark things. I've got other bits and bobs. I've got this. Some sort of tool. It's maybe what they used in the old days, and you could put it on your nose to prevent you breathing COVID. Well, they didn't have COVID in the old days, but whatever the old days equivalent was. No, it's a measuring device. I'm not entirely sure how you would use it, but for example, if you had something that was round, say you had a ball for talking's sake, or a persimmon, you could use this and put the pointy ends on the outside of it, and thus you could measure the distance between, from one side to the other. Because once you've got it to touch either side, you would just take this and put it on a ruler, and you could say, yeah, that's 4 inches or whatever. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. So maybe now is a good time to open the cracker. I wonder what's in it. Not very much by the looks of things. It's a measuring device. I've got myself a tape measure for some bizarre reason. Oh my God. Right, what else have we got? Well, there's a few words it says. Oh, dropped it. It says, what's an egg? And the answer is a snow house without a loo. Riveting. We've also got a bit of tissue paper. That's maybe if you've got a bit of a cold at Christmas, you know, you can just blow your nose out. Just the job. I got the cracker in a supermarket. It's a Habitat cracker. I thought, a Habitat cracker? I'm fully expecting a pair of curtains or something in there. I have some difficulties in supermarkets. They just annoy me. They annoy the heck out of me on most occasions, you know. I've just noticed in Partick we've got a number of wee shops have opened on the Barton Road, selling sort of grocers. They're not just fruit and veg shops, they're selling other things. Some of it's a wee bit expensive, this sort of idea about saving the planet and no plastic and refillable containers and paper bags and all this carry on. But at the end of the day, some of it's actually quite expensive for some reason. I don't know why that should be. Maybe supermarkets are just so big that they can afford to bring the cost of stuff right down and get tiny profits out of individual items that in the end all kind of adds up to huge profits at the end of the day. Maybe these wee shops just can't do that. I don't know. But I just, you know, I just, supermarkets, my God. I mean, I was in one supermarket about a month or two ago. I see this quite a lot where there's nobody, there's no checkouts open. They're effectively forcing you to use the self-service checkout. You know, at the end of the day, they're putting people out of work, you know. People who would normally man checkouts. And they'll say, but we've got somebody at the self-service bit watching over things. Aye. One person watching over, what, a dozen self-service checkouts or whatever. It's a nonsense. Putting people out of jobs. But there's nobody on checkout. I thought, okay, I'll use the self-service checkout. And I must have picked, I don't know what, I was at a self-service checkout, but it seems slightly different from some of the other ones either side of me. Because there was just barely enough room. I'm thinking, okay, struggling to even find somewhere to put my glasses down. You know, you're masked up, your glasses are steaming up. I've got to put my glasses down. And then the empty bag thing, there was a tiny wee space, and I thought as soon as I start putting stuff in this, the whole thing's just going to be falling about all over the place. It was a nightmare. I'm thinking, I can't be doing with this, you know. And I noticed a queue started forming at one of the checkouts because the woman looking after the self-service checkouts had rang a bell. So the queue started forming at one of the checkouts, folk anticipating the arrival of a checkout person. So I thought, right, okay, we'll just forget this self-service malarkey, I'll go and join the queue. And we all stood there for an awful long time, and nobody was turning up. And we all started kind of muttering and looking about the place, you know. This sort of air of discontent. And I thought, I've just had enough of this. So we're over to the woman that rang the bell. It said something like, excuse me, but how long are we all expected to stand about here? Are we all just wasting our time or what? And her reply was, there's no need to be cheeky. I'm thinking, and I said, I'm not being cheeky. I'm asking you a question. We're all standing about here, you know, nothing's happening. So she rang the bell again. Somebody eventually turned up and then set up the checkout beside the one that we were all standing at. He didn't come, didn't come to the checkout that we were all at. So we all had to kind of shuffle over to the next one. Everyone doing their best to gain an advantage, get in before somebody else. And at that point I thought, I surrender. So I just left my basket of shopping and walked out. sort of cut my nose off to spite my face, you might say, because I was really looking forward to some of the stuff I'd bought. But just, you know, it's the way it goes. And I've not been back to that supermarket since. Lovely. If you've got any supermarket experiences, by all means drop me a comment. We can all have a good laugh, or a cry, or whatever. So that's COP26 over in Glasgow. And thankfully we didn't have the riots and the unrest that perhaps it was anticipated. And most days when it was on, I would go down to the area that COP26 was on, which was actually quite a large area. Quite a large area was fenced off, including part of the Clydeside Expressway. It was just shut. But I used to like going down, just out of interest, and wander around the perimeter fence in a kind of proprietorial manner, just checking up on things. And yet, there was a lot of policemen, you know. And demonstrators. There was demonstrators as well. An awful lot of the demonstrators just kind of sat on the ground in silence for a lot of the time. This must have been their way of demonstrating. They would just sit there. And there was some that were a bit vocal and banged drums and stuff like that. Some of these people have kind of mastered a particular way of banging the drum that it's strangely irritating, you know. There's all the kind of stuff that goes with it. But when I was down, I would often try to lighten things up. Maybe it's just my age. I'm always, as I've maybe said before, if I'm out and about, suddenly giving vent to a snatch of conversation to somebody in the street, you know, and they're thinking, what's a guy talking to me there? And I was always trying to lighten things up, you know. There was, I mean, most police vans are sort of white, but there was yellowish police vans. And as I passed by a lot of policemen, you know, and I said to two of them, because these yellow vans had, I think it was Merseyside or something on the side of them. And I said, as I passed by, I said, that typical for those from Liverpool, they've just always got to do things differently. Yellow instead of white. On another occasion, I passed by and I said to a female police officer, I said, very much hope there's a candy floss stall down here. And you know, she got it. She kind of laughed, you know, because there was a kind of slight kind of carnival atmosphere about the whole thing. But then on another day, there was an area quite near Finnieston railway station, just a small area. They seemed to be full of what looked like inflatable white buildings. I don't know what that bit was used for, and I'm not really interested, but it just seemed to be an area with a lot of inflatable white buildings. And I always used to think that if there's going to be a bouncy castle anywhere in the whole site, it was going to be in there. And the curiosity got the better of me one day, and I thought, oh, I'll walk past it. And there was two police officers at the kind of entrance. One was a police officer. I'm not sure if the other was a police officer or a security guard. As I passed by, I kind of stopped and I said to them, I was just thinking there that, you know, if there's going to be a bouncy castle anywhere in the whole site, it's going to be in there. And one of them kind of suddenly went on the defensive with chest out, and he said, "What?" I thought, oh, here we go. And I just repeated what I'd said, but they weren't kind of getting it, you know. They weren't. They thought I was being serious, you know, just trying to start trouble or something. So I thought, I'll move away here. But as I moved away, I could see two other policemen strolling in my direction. And so as I passed them by, I was slightly irritated by the fact that these two guys didn't get my sense of humour, you know. It annoyed me. So as I passed by the other two officers, I said to them, I was just saying there that if there's going to be a bouncy castle anywhere in this whole complex, it's going to be in there. And the female police officer, she said, you think so? And I thought, I'm not going to win here. I'm going to have to make a tactical retreat. And after a couple of seconds I said, but nobody seems to have a sense of humour these days. And thankfully that made one of them smile, you know, and I just gently kind of sneaked off into the distance. It's not easy having a sense of humour, you know. It gets me into some trouble sometimes. They're probably still talking about me now in Liverpool. You see that guy? Bouncy castle guy. Yep. So we've got Omicron now. This pandemic's close to going on for 2 years now. It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, Omicron, it sounds to me like a word that should be said in a very deep, echoey voice. Omicron. Like maybe one of Darth Vader's mates out of Star Wars. May the Force be with you. Thank you, Omicron. We will take over the world together. I mean, there is a part of me thinking that, I mean, I understand the need for putting Joe Public in the picture, but in the last couple of days it's just sounded awful alarming. Tidal wave of infection and surges of infection, and there will be an awful lot of people in their house, probably on their own, who are scared, absolutely scared witless. You know, I'm all for keeping us informed and such like, but some of the language that they've used, I wonder about, to be honest, I really do. Scaring people can cause damage, you know. I'm just referring to my notes here, things I was going to talk about, but I probably rabbited on long enough. And my stomach's rumbling. It could be time for a pie. So, you know, whatever you're doing at Christmas, whether you're spending it on your own or with other people, it'll soon be over. And it's not going to be that long before days start getting longer and the nights get shorter and we can get back out there into the big wide world and be doing a bit of walking and stuff like that. So take care. I'm Eddie Burns, and I'll see you again.
Brightly dawns this brand new day, and festive fun will come your way. With much to eat and lots to drink, try not to be lonely and try not to think. You'll smile alert and pretend to have fun as Santa follows right down along. With much to eat and lots to drink, Try not to